Okay, welcome back, guys. We're going to talk about some pretty easy to obtain, easy to play builds for Melee on Project Ascension today. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe and leave a comment. And if you have any questions or want to make a video request, you can also comment down below about that, and I will get back to you. So now let's get into the builds. I've got the talent calculator thing open here today. So the first build we're going to look at, and by the way, these builds are for general play, a little bit more for PvE, but we'll talk about some PvP aspects as well. And you can tweak these builds yourself, add different things to them if you get some, if you are lucky enough to roll like certain abilities. Like if you roll True Shot Aura or something, obviously you want to take a talent point out of one of these and put it into True Shot Aura. But you can figure that out, I'm sure. So yeah, we're going to talk about, the first build we're going to talk about is Blood and Guts. It is, I like this build a lot. It's very easy to roll this. So to start out with, you want Charge, Rend, Stealth, and Battle Stance. Battle Stance is just whatever. There's really not much else good to pick. You could also play Blessing of Might if you wanted to have more chances to get different rares in your builds instead. But Battle Stance is okay. Blessing of Might is also fine. Garrote, like the reason you pick Stealth is so you can get Garrote. If you have a Garrote skill card, don't pick Stealth. And Charges, of course, because gap closers are very good for PvP and also PvE. It's just very convenient to have a gap closer, but if you're going without a gap closer and you're trying to PvP, it's just not going to work out. But I like to have a gap closer for everything. I think they're good for all content, in my opinion. If you want a pet, then what I would do is start Charge plus Pet, which is a pretty decent way to use this build too. You just, be rolling the Rend later, which is just an uncommon, which a little bit about that. Like with the uncommons, you're going to get uncommons. By the time you're 7 and you do all your Hands of Fate and stuff, you're going to have gotten the uncommons that you're looking for. So I wouldn't worry too much about picking them at level 1 unless you've got nothing else to pick. And I wouldn't worry about using skill cards on them unless, of course, you've got nothing else to skill card. It's nice to get them as soon as you can, but by 70, you've got so many Hands of Fate that you're most likely going to get the common cards that you need, so I wouldn't worry too much about those. So, the things I would skill card with this build. Well, first, another thing about this build is there's a stealth version you can go for, but you need to get like things like Shadow Dance and other spells, and it's just a lot more complicated, much less likely to get it. So that's why we've got this version of the build here. It's very good. This version might be even better. You don't actually execute is not even that mandatory. So if you don't want to run the execute version, you really don't have to. I do like the execute though. Anyway, so the cards you want, okay, for this version of the build, I would go for Garrote, so you don't have to get the stealth at level 1, because there's a talent for Garrote. It is, where is it at? Serrated Blades gives your attacks a chance to let you use Garrote outside of stealth. And since you're using double daggers with this build, this is a double dagger agility build. Since you're using double daggers with this build, you hit very fast, have lots of chances to proc this free Garrote thing. So if you can card Garrote, that means you don't need stealth. Once you get Garrote from your rerolls, you can get rid of stealth as well if that happens to you. But it's it's also not bad to have stealth if you want to go the stealth build, and sometimes it's convenient to have stealth, but stealth really needs talent points, which we didn't really spare any for, but you could if you wanted to, okay? So I would card Garrote first and foremost, and you can do poisons or you can do Rock Biter, which I like poisons for this build. Rock Biter is also very good, but I do like the poisons. Makes the mutilate a little bit better, and it makes the build more versatile because you can spec into like you can go for wound poison for PvP if you want. You can go for the talent that makes your poisons apply crippling poison, which is also quite nice for PvP if that's a concern for you. Poisons also increase the damage your mutilate does, which is good. But Rock Biter will increase the damage of these bleeds. It's really good too. So whichever one you have is good. I personally do go for the poisons. I just really like to have poisons, and I like the extra versatility in the build that offers. If you've got like extra skill cards, you know, these builds are mostly assuming you do not have gold skill cards, but if you do have a gold skill card, you know, and you've not worried about getting the Garrote and the poison, then some other options would be things like Hunger for Blood. Hunger for Blood's really good with this build, and you know, if you've got a full set of cards, like 4 cards, then you could look at things like True Shot Aura or Rampage, which are pretty nice for this build as well. Okay, and our next build is going to be the Windrager. This was a request from a commenter, so we're going to be discussing the Windrager. So the Windrager, you start with Blood Rage, and this is a pretty good build with a pet, so you can do Blood Rage plus pet if you desire. But if you don't want a pet, I would start with Charge, Battle Stance, Blood Rage, and the 4th slot, it's kind of a toss-up. You could do Blessing of Might, you could do Heroic Strike, really not a huge deal. Nothing too crazy for you to pick in that last slot, level 1. And the skill cards I would go for, of course, Titan's Grip and Storm Strike, which are core to this build. It's just 2 rares. If you don't have skill cards, you've got a pretty decent chance of rolling these anyway. But this is, of course, assuming you've got skill cards. This build needs skill cards a bit more than the Blood and Guts build. So if this is your first character, then I would do the Blood and Guts build instead of this one. But Titan's Grip plus Storm Strike, not too crazy to imagine you pulling those just with luck. But ideal world, you skill card those. And if you've got extra skill cards, like the gold cards or something, then I would definitely get Rockbiter, especially if you're going the pet build, because the pet really appreciates the Titan's Grip Rockbiter bonus. But then Death Wish, Recklessness, Pummel, Rampage, also good options for your other cards. And of course, with all these builds, you know, things like Aspect of the Beast, if you don't have other cards, you know, just things that just give you a little bit extra attack power or something like that are also, you know, perfectly good. And I've got all these, by the way, all these builds are linked down below if you are curious, want to copy them. So the third build is, oh, and by the way, of course, this Windrager, it's a two-handed, it's a strength-based two-handed weapon build, double two-handed weapons, because you're using Titan's Grip anyway. So one with the light. So this can be one with the light. It can also be consecrated strikes. So a little bit about that. If you're going consecrated strikes, you like obviously want to get rid of stuff like mental quickness, and go for more like some stuff to improve consecration, or just like some more like strength and attack power bonuses that you can get from the talent trees. That's the kind of thing I'd be looking for if I was running consecrated strikes. But I went with one with the light here for this example build. One with the light's a little bit more complicated, and I actually kind of prefer it. I think consecrated strikes might do a bit more DPS in, especially in dungeons and stuff, but I like one with the light. I like it, the spells all hit quite hard. I think it's a very fun build to play. It's also actually quite easy to roll. So to start with, you want, where did I put it? You want Charge plus Judgment plus Seal plus the 4th slot again is kind of a toss-up. You can get like you can get Blessing of Might. It really doesn't matter too much. You could get Holy Light. Just depends on what you want to do. I'd probably pick Blessing of Might. I really like Blessing of Might. It's a huge boost to your damage, especially if you've got bad gear, and especially while you're leveling. But so yeah, Seal of the Righteous is the seal I'm referring to. Seal of the Righteous is actually one with the light's best build, which makes it a little easier to get than Consecrated Strikes, because Consecrated Strikes is more of a attack power build, where this one gets a lot of spell power, which makes Seal of the Righteous better for it. So yeah, Seal of the Righteous, and the Judgment you get. I put Judgment of Wisdom here. The yellow Judgment is also fine if you rather have the extra healing. I like the extra mana. This build doesn't really run out of mana though because of Judgments of the Wise, but whatever you want to do is fine. Now for your skill cards, the only one that you really need, and the only spell you absolutely, like the only rare spell you absolutely must roll into, is Divine Storm. Of course, you know, your Crusader Strike, your Hammer of the Righteous, and your Exorcism, those are all commons. You're probably going to get those rather easily. So Divine Storm is really the one to worry about getting. So this is actually another pretty decent one if you are just, if you're leveling your first character or you don't have many skill cards. It only needs one card. You could do it without the card and just get lucky. Not really a big deal. So anyway, yeah, so the only card it really needs is the Divine Storm. I think Seal of Vengeance pulls a little bit more DPS than Seal of the Righteous, like especially at the higher gear levels. I haven't been able to really test this, but this is what I've been told by people from the free pick servers say that the Seal of Vengeance is a little bit better. But Seal of the Righteous, it's very good for this build. But if you have the cards, then maybe Seal of Vengeance is something you consider. Not a big deal either way. The difference is pretty minor. So let's see, what's the other one? Rockbiter is quite good with this build. So if you want to card Rockbiter, you'll get a lot of value out of that. And Avenging Rat, this build can use Avenging Rat, and it's a very good DPS cooldown for it, so something else to consider. If you don't really have any other cards, like with all the melee builds, Aspect of the Beast, Rampage, True Shot Ore are all very good for this. This is a very good, easy build to roll. It performs pretty well in PvP. So does Blood and Guts, by the way. Both of these builds are quite good in PvP. The Windrager, I don't see it very often. I think it's more of a PvE kind of open world build. Sometimes you fight them in high risk and they're okay. It's not terrible, but I quite like One with the Light in PvP. It performs very well for me. So that's something to consider. But it's good in all content. And the last build we're going to cover is this kind of complicated, or a little confusing, I guess, would maybe be the right word, is the Enhancement Shaman. And the legendary Ari we're using here is Primordial Fury. But you could turn this into so many different builds. If you wanted to run, for example, Ice Lash instead, you would take a lot of points out of Elemental Shaman, put them into Frost Mage, keep all of this pretty much the same, and all of a sudden, you're Ice Lash. You could do the same thing with Fire Hybrid, which uses the Lava Lash legendary enchant instead. But of course, you take points out of Elemental again, put them into Fire Mage. Same thing with the Thunder Slam. You just take the Ally Shaman points out, put them into Slam and Thunderclap talents. So this build can be used as a template for a lot of things, but what I'm talking about here is Primordial Fury. You don't see this build too much, but it's actually very good. All the spells hit really hard. It shreds through mobs in the open world. It's quite good against players. You can just really use this build for anything. It's a very nice build. I really recommend this one. It's a little bit harder to roll than the other ones I've mentioned though, but so let's see. To start out with, you want Lightning Shield, Lightning Bolt, Charge. And again, the 4 slot, it's kind of a toss-up. You could go for Might again, like with all these builds. Might's a pretty good talent, a pretty good spell. So it's kind of a toss-up what you want for your fourth spell here. But Lightning Shield, Lightning Bolt, and Charge, pretty mandatory. If you really wanted to run a pet, I would probably stick with the pet plus the Lightning Shield and maybe card like an Intercept or a Shadow Step or something like that. But don't really recommend this build for a pet too much, because you really want the Lightning Shield and the Charge from level 1. So skill cards, you need Storm Strike and Shamanistic Rage. Of course, Primordial Fury, the build centers around Shamanistic Rage. But if you don't have Shamanistic Rage, you can run one of the other builds. There's a lot of legendary enchants for Storm Strike and stuff. It's not really a huge deal, and they're all pretty good. Even with no legendary enchant, Storm Strike plus Lava Lash, you won't have a problem doing like dungeons and open world content and stuff. But of course, if you want to run this build, you need Shamanistic Rage. It's very good though. It's very good with Shamanistic Rage. So I do Storm Strike plus Shamanistic Rage. If you have extra cards, then I go for the Flame Tongue weapon. The other weapon imbues are also pretty good. The Ice one, the Rockbiter, of course, is good for everybody. And I'm blanking on what the Wind one is called. Wind Fury weapon. Wind Fury weapon's also quite good. So you got a lot of options with this build. But this is the one I'm going to go for here. And like I said, I've linked all of them down below. If you've got any questions, just ask. Video request, let me know. Alright, well that is all for this video. I'll see you guys next time.